Hello everybody, welcome to another video review. So the last one was on the Mara Jade Signature Edition Master Replicas lightsaber, and I said in that video I had a couple more that had come in decently priced. So this is from Revenge of the Sith, and this is the Obi-Wan Kenobi lightsaber from Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. As you can see, I have both plaques, the limited edition plaque, which comes with the lightsaber, and then the worldwide edition with a lot of information on that plaque. And I had talked about this in some detail with the Darth Sidious lightsaber, also from Revenge of the Sith, and how during that time period, the lightsabers released by Master Replicas neglected to give you the worldwide edition size, and then they had to correct it afterward by issuing another plaque. This also occurred with the Luke Elite Edition, as well as a Luke Signature Edition and Limited Edition lightsaber hilt as well. But it affected most of it, was affecting basically the Revenge of the Sith sabers, the Sidious, the Vader, the Obi-Wan, the Anakin, and the Yoda from Revenge of the Sith. All 5 of those lightsabers did not have the edition size, and so secondary plaques were issued for all of them, which you had to send for, you had to ask for, and of course, that created separation because some people just simply did not do that. This is a very beautiful lightsaber, which we'll go into in some detail. All of the Revenge of the Sith lightsabers are, beautifully made. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of the movie, the concept, but in terms of the design, especially as far as the lightsabers are concerned, this movie was head and shoulders above, being the last movie of the prequels, and therefore sort of the last glimpse you have of the Jedi Order before their fall, kind of at their so-called peak. Revenge of the Sith really, went into the design element of these sabers to make them as unbelievably beautiful as possible, while also trying to maintain or create a link with the hilts that we've, so come to know and love in Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. And, that meant, again, paying a little bit extra attention to the appearance of the Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Vader hilts specifically. Let me start turning this bad boy around while I talk, so you can begin to, appreciate what this thing looks like. Let me just move it down just a little bit so you have a little bit better view. So what to say about this? Well, as you can see by the edition size, they made 4,500 of this. So this is not a difficult, or it wasn't a difficult lightsaber to acquire. In fact, at one point in the early, 2000 or the late 2000s, early 2010s, let's just say, this was released in November 18th, 2005. I would say around 2009, 2010 neighborhood, these were so common. People were buying them for a few $100s and literally just buying them for like the display case, for instance. There is a difference in Master Replicas display cases. The older ones are the ones where the case is recessed, and then the newer ones are the ones where the case is, of course, around the bevel. And the older ones were much lower in height, and so a lot of collectors really didn't like those. The later ones, like the one you're seeing here, it's just more popular. And so people were buying like literally this hilt and just playing around with a hilt, almost like a toy. And they were buying it for the actual case. Now, of course, in 2023, it's a different matter. This is not a particularly difficult hilt to acquire, but it is difficult to acquire with, let's just say, everything. And by everything, I mean, does it have the secondary worldwide edition plaque? As you know, a lot of people never sent for it. And then, does it have the paperwork Does it have the original case and packaging? And finally, condition, of course, is very important. How is the condition? What does it look like? So, and also the price, right? You want to have it for a good price. So I would say, as you know, prices for master replicas lightsabers are all over the place. There's a lot of sellers, whether either dishonest or just unsophisticated, who equate all of these sabers with each other. And so if they see, for instance, one lightsaber sell for $3,000-$4,000, they don't understand it's like maybe a signature edition one or something like that, and they'll just sort of overprice it. But I would say that, complete with a second plaque and with everything together, I would say anything in the neighborhood of, I would say $1,200 to $1,500 would be a very fair price for something like this. I was fortunate enough to actually acquire all of the worldwide edition plaques for the Anakin, Obi-Wan, Darth Sidious, and the Yoda. So I got those 4 plaques separately, brand new in original shrink wrap from Master Replicas. And that makes acquiring a lot easier because there's way more versions of this hilt that doesn't have the worldwide edition than there is sets that do. And so obviously, if I already have the worldwide edition, I have a much greater canvas of opportunity, a much greater number of chances of getting a really good hilt for a good price, because I don't have to worry about that second plaque. Even if you only have the one plaque, which in this case, the seller only had the one plaque, that didn't matter because I had the second one. And so again, price I got was fairly solid for this. I bought this along with the Anakin Skywalker Revenge of the Sith for a package deal, and the two was, the two together was very, very reasonably priced, especially for the condition that they were in. This, I believe, is in beautiful condition, as we'll see. The acrylic has a little bit of smudge and scratch, which I polished out. It could be in slightly better, better condition, but by and large, again, with Master Replicas, all of the mirror bases and acrylic cases, even brand new, which is how I opened the Darth Sidious one, are going to have these micro defects from just dust accumulation over time, even straight out of the factory. As you can see, I polished the mirror very, very nicely to the point where it's actually slippery. You can see that the display plaques are actually moving around just from me simply rotating the lightsaber. So much for the actual history of the piece itself for Master Replicas. Again, this occurred later in their line. I think they made way too many of these. I mean, are there really 4,500 people who want a Episode 3 Obi-Wan lightsaber? Obviously, the answer was no. But over the decades, with sort of the resurgence, and we see this quite a bit in different waves of collectibles, but I think as the children and the teenagers who so loved the original prequel trilogy grew up into collectors with disposable income, that all of a sudden props and collectibles from that era of film became very highly sought after. And when it comes to Star Wars, probably nothing, or there's no other piece that is more collectible or desired sometimes than the lightsaber hilts. I mean, you can argue for studio scale models of ships and things like that, but they take up a lot more space. And I think what captures the imagination the most, especially for people in their formative years, is these amazing lightsabers. And so I think a lot more fans of the prequel trilogy started buying these, and that's why they began to increase in value and make a resurgence. Again, at one point, this saber could be easily bought for a couple $100, $300 or so. And now you would be fortunate to get one for lower than $1,200, in my opinion, in this quality. So moving on to the concept and the in-movie version, I can go into a lot of detail about exactly what went into Obi-Wan's lightsaber, much as I did for the Luke and Vader, hilts, and how Luke is from a Graflex flash gun and the Vader's from an MPP flash gun, etc. There's similarly, very complicated history with the Obi-Wan lightsaber. Every part of the saber has been identified, and the original parts that were made to create it has been, meticulously researched. But I won't go into that with this review because I would prefer to save that for like the New Hope original version, which I don't have yet. Hopefully, when I acquire that, then we can talk about it because that's a little bit more appropriate. For this particular hilt, the concept is that this belonged to Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Jedi Master. Okay, and it's of course obviously supposed to serve as a precursor to the New Hope version, but because he built it as a new Jedi Master, and it had not gone through all of the trials and tribulations of literally a lifetime on Tatooine, it had to look the part. It had to look. This has to look the part of the original lightsaber as built by Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi at the height of the Council and the height of the Old Republic before the fall, and with all of the lore appropriate to it. And so, as such, when Master Replicas created the Obi-Wan hilt for Episode 4, they obviously tried to pay homage and make it as absolutely accurate as possible to the original prop from New Hope, which is this kind of hodgepodge of different components. But here, this was not actually created from those parts at all. This is an idealized version of that hilt, and it's built from scratch by the prop department. Again, paying homage to the original New Hope design, but idealizing it, making it look way nicer, so that you can believe that this was the optimized hilt from the days of the Old Republic, and that would be worthy of being in the Jedi Master's hands before, again, slowly degenerating and changing over time to what we see decades later in the original trilogy. So that's the idea, behind the concept of the piece, and kind of the idea behind, I think, almost all of the pieces from Revenge of the Sith, with the exception of, maybe Yoda or Darth Sidious, where there was never a original trilogy equivalent. But the idea is that all of these sabers have to have a lot of bling, a lot of chrome. It just has to look essentially beautiful. It has to look gorgeous. It has to look like just amazing, pieces that would be wielded by some of the most respected and powerful, individuals in that world, the Jedi Masters. And of course, I think they did do a wonderful job in terms of just the actual design. For sure, the Revenge of the Sith hilts are the most beautiful, in my opinion, of the entire line. The prequel trilogy in general had the most beautiful lightsaber hilts, but Revenge of the Sith really just kind of took it to the next level, so to speak. So, having said that, let's push this back. I forget exactly the order that I did these things, but I think what I'm going to do is let's take off the acrylic case right over here. So now you can see it in all its glory. We're going to put it aside. And as is my usual pattern, after the acrylic case is off, we can put the black background behind it so you're not as distracted. You can get to see this hilt in all of its glory. And then you can see the different plaques moving around. We're going to do it right over here. Okay, very good. So with that in the background, let's take a look at the certificate of authenticity. There's really not much to it. As you can see, this is the black envelope. That is standard for products from MR in this time period. All of the Revenge of the Sith hilts have this very classy black envelope. It is a fold-out envelope, not an actual one. This is pretty much brand new. The seller here did not have all of the parts for the certificate. They don't have the silly, collector society or the limited warranty. Well, here they do have the limited warranty, but they don't have the product registration card. They don't have the collector society card. They don't have the microfiber cloth or whatever. I don't know whether it was because he lost it over the decades or whether he bought it from a secondary distributor that never came with it or whatever. But anyways, here is the limited warranty. And then this is the actual certificate of authenticity. As you can see, unlike Mara Jades, there's no discoloration. Definitely you can tell the sort of collector who treated their hilts very carefully versus those who just kind of didn't quite understand what they had. And can't really blame those who didn't. I mean, you certainly didn't think when you were buying these at the time they'd be worth thousands of dollars. But now in the aftermarket in 2023, you definitely want to buy from people who just tend to be by nature, very careful with their stuff. I'm sure that this person here maybe didn't think that this was going to be worth so much, but he just in general took care of his things very carefully. He was the original owner. He only bought 3 hilts, believe it or not. He had the Darth Sidious, the Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the Anakin Skywalker, all from Revenge of the Sith. And he sold me 2 of them. I was interested in the Darth Sidious one, but he sold that before I had a chance to really cement things with him. And at the end, I did pay again more of a premium just to have one completely unopened because of the gloss effect on that hilt. So if you take a look, again, you can see the certificate of authenticity right here, and you have the gold stamp. So I think I mentioned the Mara Jade review. Again, it's just this sort of de-evolution, if you want to call it, this decline, where by the time you got to Mara Jade's signature edition, I mean, a signature edition lightsaber should be true royalty, right, in the line. So rare and coveted, very, very limited, and having the signature of the cast. You would think that you would want to go all out. And so for Master Replicas to end on a signature edition, but then kind of cheap out, not even give us a gold stamp, but it was I don't know, silver or something like that, was awfully disappointing. And that was another reason why, in my opinion, the Mara Jade signature edition does not have the same cachet that the rest of the signature series has. Number one, it's not a canon lightsaber. Number 2, it's from an expanded universe character. And number 3, it just didn't get all the bling and the love and the respect that the other signature editions did, And so that's why I don't think that it commands the same respect and price point as other signature editions for those reasons. So here it is. I'm going to slowly scroll so you can read this at your own leisure. It's a little summary of essentially the Revenge of the Sith movie. You can see that this is supposed to be the one used by Obi-Wan in Star Wars Episode 4: New Hope. So the prop department referenced available archive materials and machined a similar looking hilt in aluminum with brass and resin details. So again, obviously taking homage from the original. They mentioned the World War I grenade and faucet handle. We worked into a narrower, more streamlined design. And then the usual how Lucasfilms provided Master Replicas with the actual prop so that it could be the most accurate possible. So some nice information here. Let's put this back, this envelope. Put this aside. So let's start turning this slowly. I have to move it back just a little bit. There's not quite enough give. I think it's better now. So just turning it around so you can again see the hilt without the reflection of the acrylic case blocking it. Just trying to get the optimum distance. This is probably heresy. I mean, it is heresy, but I do quite find myself liking the Revenge of the Sith built from scratch design aesthetic over even the original trilogies. Because the original trilogies, well, it has that iconic status because we love the movie so much. I mean, honestly, it was cobbled together from just the available parts. I mean, budget was a huge problem for those of you who have, obviously looked at all these documentaries and done the research. We all know the trials and tribulations that Lucas had to go through to make those, especially that first movie. So there was definitely this kind of rough, lived-in look to those saber hilts, which worked out, in the movie's favor ultimately. But when you look at these beauties, the end result of essentially a budgetless, mandate, and for them to, it's almost like they took the original hilts and they just plussed it to the nines, so just really, really impressive, all the chrome and the gold plating. So one of the things that definitely was used, they would take homage from the PCS, board strips, and they would replace the bubble strips from the Texas Instruments, the TI Exactras, to make it a little bit more streamlined, more beautiful, a lot more chrome, and again, with the lore, we mentioned this with the Mace Windu review and the Darth Sidious review, but as a member of the Jedi Council and you are a Jedi Master, only Jedi Masters are allowed to incorporate electrum into their lightsaber hilt design. And, Mace Windu was obviously dripping with it. And Darth Sidious, as sort of a kind of cloaked, commentary on this, his entire saber hilt was electrum, essentially. So here, too, you can see that, Obi-Wan Kenobi's hilt, which he created after becoming a Jedi Master, incorporates that gold. And so this gold plating you see here, within the lore is electrum. Okay, and again, should only be available to be used by a Jedi Master. So when you create your lightsaber as a Padawan, oftentimes, you incorporate elements of your master's hilt as a homage to him, to honor him. Oftentimes, after you become a Jedi Knight, you may very well create or design another hilt. Although that's more unusual, you would probably just keep the hilt. But once you've graduated from a Jedi Knight to an actual Jedi Master, often you do design another lightsaber, and this one is very much unique, very much a reflection of who you are now that you finally attain the rank of Master. It reflects the years, if not decades, of wisdom and seasoning that's occurred since, and so that design is radically different. And so, as you can see, Obi-Wan's final hilt when he became a Jedi Master is, quite a bit different from the Episode 1 and Episode 2 lightsaber that he had, which had a homage to Qui-Gon Jinn. So this is, again, in keeping with the lore. And of course, for us, it's interesting because we kind of saw the end result of this hilt back in Episode 4, A New Hope, just much more weathered, much more aged, in the hands of someone who has also aged. And so we moved backwards with the prequels. Even though it's a sequel, we moved backwards in time, and now we got to see what that hilt that's so beaten up, and weathered. In A New Hope, we get an opportunity to see what it looks like, essentially, when Obi-Wan first made it. So I think that, is actually a pretty cool and neat thing. And it's something, I guess, similar to what we see with Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber as well, as that is, of course, supposed to be the one that Luke Skywalker got from Obi-Wan in A New Hope, and is the basis for all of the iconic hilts for the original trilogy. And then, of course, coming full circle, when Luke Skywalker had to replace his lightsaber that was lost in Cloud City after his duel with Vader. And, of course, by then, there is no Jedi Council. All of the rituals had essentially, moved on. I mean, we don't know what Obi-Wan or Yoda might have said to Luke off screen, but certainly there was no scene shot of them ever kind of educating Luke about the legacy of the Jedi Council and how the Jedi did things. There must have been something similar to that, or Luke must have found out, because what he did in the beginning of Return of the Jedi is very similar. It's almost like he achieved the rank of Master himself. I don't know how quite that works, but he had to construct a new lightsaber, and in doing so, he also paid homage to his master Obi-Wan, and by creating a lightsaber that has the narrow neck of Obi-Wan's, and you can kind of see that homage. So it kind of comes full circle around, where Obi-Wan creating the Episode 1 lightsaber homage to Qui-Gon Jinn, and then Luke Skywalker crafting his Return of the Jedi one to replace the one he lost, and in doing so, paying homage to Obi-Wan. So I thought that was really kind of neat that we got to see that. Okay, so moving on, these are the two plaques. Over time, the double-sided tape for this is just going to completely go away. So you can see this is over close to 18 years, almost 20 years. The tape is completely gone. There's a lot of talk about how to replace this. I mean, do you want to do a double-sided tape or whatnot? I was thinking about just adding a single little drop of glue, super glue, to affix it. I think double-sided tape is best, but it can add a little bit of extra thickness, to the actual plaque itself, but it's much less permanent. Wow, I just noticed this. So on the back of this plaque, they actually also handprint the number, the limited edition number, which is 1,811. That's pretty neat, I guess. But honestly, I'm not exactly playing with this thing. It's going to be on display untouched. And so there is a little recess. And so if you just put the recess in, it doesn't fall off as long as you just don't mess with it. So I might just keep it like this for now. There's no real reason to do it. But maybe for peace of mind later on, I'll just put a little tiny drop of super glue and just have it affixed so it'll never come off. That's one of the things that this was packaged meticulously by the seller. But because this was loose, this thing was actually in all sorts of odd positions. Like the Anakin one was completely loose, and it was actually wedged between the acrylic case and the styrofoam. I have no idea how it got there. That was just kind of insane. So that is kind of the problem. If he decided not to, he should have just put saran wrap around this thing to prevent this thing from moving around. But, that's neither here nor there. Take a look here, limited edition. You can see the logos of MR, Lucasfilm, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan Kenobi lightsaber, limited edition 1,811. But of how many? Of 2,000, of 2,500, we don't know. So I'm going to put this aside. What do? You send for this bad boy. And now take a look. Same thing. But it says limited edition, worldwide edition of 4,500, and it gives you the date that it was released, November 18th, 2005, in the replicas. So, I mean, I don't know how to feel about this. This is just kind of a little bit silly. It would be much preferable to just simply have the edition size as a backslash after the number. But I do kind of appreciate the fact that, they gave us a date to date these. And it just looks nice having the two of them side by side. So we're going to put that aside. The mirror is what you've seen before. So it's time to maybe put this off to the side so it's out of the way. And then we can lift this saber off. So as with all of these lightsabers, they're made out of machined aluminum, and it's very, very heavy. The original seller really did take beautiful care of this. It came with some smudge marks, but those were easily wiped away with a slightly damp microfiber cloth. So as you can see, this is truly a mirror finish. You can actually see my camera in the reflection of the chrome plating. Just an absolutely beautiful lightsaber. I'm gonna hold it, rotate it in all its many ways. Of course, in my gloved hand, you can see the screws here and here to give a little bit of character. In the original episode 4, these are just two simple knobs. And here, of course, they replaced it with something quite a bit more elegant. You can imagine over the decades, as this lightsaber began to wear away and break down, Obi-Wan just had to replace it with much simpler parts on Tatooine. Instead of the bubble strip, you have this homage to the PCS cards. It's metal. The less you touch these with the bare hands, obviously, the better. Again, self-selection. 4,500 of these were made. How many of those 4,500 were sold to people who was anal enough to use gloves, even for, let's just say, a $200 or $300 collectible? How many people bought these for $200 or $300 and just took them to cons and conventions and smashed them and played with them? That's the passage of 20 years, tells us this. And so if you touch this with a human hand without gloves, oxidation and degeneration will occur to some extent, but it might be inconsequential. If you did this in a very dry temperature and humidity controlled place, if you only touched it briefly and your hands were reasonably dry, genetics comes into play, then you have a hilt like this with just a little bit of smudge and really no damage at all. I've definitely seen versions of this where this, part of the control box, I'm gonna go super close up and you can see how beautiful this looks, where this thing was just, you can just see rust marks all along this area, oxidation, damage. And here, as you can see, this is what a pristine one looks like. This looks like it's just been opened right out of the box. You can see how this is just nice and clean right here, okay? Take a look at the control box, look at the chrome finish, beautiful chrome finish. If you look closely enough, you can definitely tell that there's going to be some very, very faint little scratches or something like that. But I mean, look at this. This is 4K camera, iPhone. I'm going macro close, and I doubt that you could see anything here at all. The faintest touch of something here or there, little tiny dust particles. So there you go. This is the segment from the grenade. Nice, shiny black, beautifully done. Here you have the gold plating, the brass. This is the electrum, in lore, so to speak. And you have the very, very narrow neck. This is definitely a lot more narrow and refined than the episode 4 version. And then let's just kind of take a look over here so you can see the actual emitter and how beautiful all of that is. Wonderfully polished. And then moving the other way. Very, very symmetrical, as you can see. Here's the little difference here. There's like a cog, that's a nut. Brass. And then thankfully this has no rubber coating. This is not rubber at all. This is like, I don't know what it is, like plastic or something like that. So that's interesting. And then this is of course the knob from the sink off the original. Also beautifully chromed. And then rather than a D-ring, which you use to hang off your belt, all of the new Revenge of the Sith lightsabers all come with this cover tech, which is what you use to hang onto a belt clip. I think this is actually what they used in the filming of the movies. That's how the actors carry these around on their belts. And so as a screen accurate prop, Master Replicas also recreated this. So this is kind of like in canon, and also, I suppose, just practically speaking, what they did when they made the movies. And that's why you have these cover techs on all of them, from Anakin's to Obi-Wan. They had these. Let's take a look at the end of the hilt. You can see here, you can actually see me, it's like a mirror. That's how brightly polished it is. You can actually see me talking behind my iPhone. But here it is, 2005, Master Replicas, Lucasfilm Ltd. Just a beautiful, beautiful polish. This is, in all respects, just a magnificent work of art. Very heavy, very beautiful, a classy, gorgeous sort of, design off of the original. Just really, really beautiful. And I can't believe they made 4,500 of these things. It doesn't quite have the same, I think, respect in a sense as some of the other sabers, because it's not quite as rare. And it's Obi-Wan. There's so many Obi-Wans out there. I mean, but when you have this in hand, especially one in as good quality as this, it's just remarkable. And I couldn't be more pleased with it. It was always something that, I was wanting to get. I mean, sometimes, collectors buy something just because it's rare, or they don't like something because it's too common. But just judged purely from like an aesthetic point of view, this is just absolutely beautiful. It handles perfectly. It feels wonderful. It's just great. And again, I just love this design, the refinement of the original rough design for the prequels. And they just did such an amazing job. The design department deserves so much credit for this, for creating such a beautiful, idealized version of an iconic handle. So there you have it. This is the Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan Kenobi handle. So let me get this thing back into position. And you can see here that this is both actually smooth, so there wasn't any need to create anything to fit the T-track. It's still nice and symmetrical. You can actually turn it however you want. I'll do it this way so you can actually see the strip here. And then we're gonna put our plaques in position. And then there you have it. This is the final look. I'll forego putting the acrylic case because all I will do is just add more glare and reflection. But yeah, that's my review for Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan Kenobi lightsaber from Master Replicas, limited edition only 4,500, released November 18th, 2005. This is number 1,811. Probably my favorite, not the rarest. Obi-Wan as first built is the rarest at only 500 released. Not the most iconic. That would definitely have to go to the Episode 4 weathered version that they released. And it's not even the best quality because that has to be, reserved for the Phantom Menace Episode 1 Elite Edition, which is made of stainless steel. But I think aesthetically, the whole package, this is the most beautiful one. This is definitely my favorite of all of those. Give it one more twirl so you can appreciate this. All right, next up will be Anakin Skywalker. That will be a very interesting review because, again, of the legacy and the history of that hilt. And it'll be very interesting to sort of showcase and describe how they idealized that one because that really is sort of the Excalibur of the Star Wars saga, the hilt that's just been passed down through the generations. That'll be next. All right, thank you very much for going through with another 40-minute review of this beautiful lightsaber, hopefully again, along with all of my talking, you have had a chance to really appreciate how stunning this replica is in hand. Too bad I can't show you the weight on just a YouTube video, but that's actually quite something as well. Until next time, do take care.